There we go. If it's loading, there it goes. All right, so we're going to in the next Tim said there, we're going to go through the next 20 to 30 minutes here. Kind of talk about some cyber safety, a lot of tips and tricks that can help teachers and parents at the same time. And there are a few things in here. There's one page that has some links on it if you want to click on those. They should be hot, meaning that you should be able to click on them even on your screen, because they're running this through a PowerPoint Live. So if you have a question, just pop something into the chat, and or maybe you could interrupt as it goes through. I'm seeing some really cool new features in my Teams as I'm sharing this, so this is actually really nice. There's an update that came, so now I get to play around with some new tools. All right. So we are talking about cyber safety, and the biggest thing about cyber safety is the question that I always get is from many people is, why should we concern ourselves with this? What's the big deal? Or the biggest question you get is, kids already know these things. Kids know how to use technology, and the biggest thing that you need to understand is even adults, we really don't know what we're doing. When 2008 hit and Apple completely turned the world upside down by creating the first smartphone, like real smartphone, there was Blackberries before, but there was not really anything that could do what the iPhone did. And then in 2010, they did it again with the iPad. And since then, for the past 12 years, technology has just exploded with the virtual reality to, having multiple touchscreen devices that you can find everywhere. And so besides using the device, we need to care about what our kids are doing on it. And especially in today's world, if you think about what has happened over the past, say, 4 years, 5 years from 2015 on, so 7 years now, I guess, social media use has gone way up. But if you notice, the negativity has also gone way up. And so we need to help our students and our own children to promote positivity. So let me hopefully this plays. If it doesn't, please let me know. But here is a kind of example of what's going on with our students and our own children. Oops, I don't think I shared my sound. Give me a second. Did y'all hear any sound? You did? Oh, okay, never mind. I'll hit play then. There's more on that as it goes through, kind of how the phones freak out. But for time purposes, we'll move forward. But you noticed in the video that you had a lot of stuff with, you can see the child was addicted and was trying to see the real world. And when the fog of the device lifted, they could see all kinds of different things. But that's what happens with certain, and it's not with every child, and it's not with every adult, but can become an addictive habit. So the question that we ask ourselves is, do we know what they're doing on these devices? This can be a video game console, tablets, smartphones, computers, anything digital on that. And so some questions to ask ourselves is, when we put a device in front of kids, for yourself, just think to yourself, not thinking about technology. Let's just think off the, offline here. Would you let a stranger in your home? No, yes or no? Would you let someone come into your house that you don't know? Would you let your child talk to a stranger while out in public? Just random someone in the store or on the street? Do you know the content in the songs or the movies or games that your child likes? It's kind of shocking sometimes that when you actually listen to lyrics of what songs are saying, or especially video games, you may not really realize what's in the video games. And then this is my favorite one that I always like to ask people is, have you met their virtual, this is in quotation, their virtual friends in real life? Because you may say, well, I have 500 friends, but those 500 friends we don't know if they're computers. We don't know if that boy is an actual boy, or if it's a girl, or if it's a 40-year-old man sitting in a basement, or, you have no idea as you go through. And over time, we've turned in our homes into items like this, where you have, you've got a child here that is completely engulfed by looking at the TV. You can see there's some video game consoles here. There's the DVD player down here. There's a computer, webcam. There's the multiple things, and we've turned technology into sometimes babysitters. And as adults, if we don't pay attention to that, that's where our children can get, that's where they can get themselves into trouble. Because if they don't necessarily know what they're navigating through, let's say pre smartphone days, a child may never stumble across, say, pornography. It might be, they may have seen something in a store, but they may have never. I mean, and those were most of the time, depending on the country, they're covered up with different types of wrapping and so on. But with the internet, they can just mistype one word into a search in Google, and not even necessarily mistype. You can type in words that would not even have an inappropriate meaning, and a search will come up that you're going, whoa, what did I just stumble into? And we need to remember that, yes, our students today, our kids today, we consider them digital natives, that they've grown up with these devices, but it doesn't mean that they actually know what they're doing when they're navigating them. And us older folks that are digital immigrants, we're kind of just showing up to the game. We've immigrated into the world of technology and into the world of this information age. We have to figure out how we're going to help them together navigate through these things. Okay. So the big thing that is hard to get across to a lot of our adults and teachers, and as mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, and so on, is that devices are not toys that we use to entertain our kids. Technology advances were actually designed for adults most of the time. I have this conversation with my own children. My son likes video games. I like video games. And he'll say, well, why can you play that game and I can't? And I'm like, well, there's a difference between a game for an adult. And he goes, what do you, but this game is not for an adult. And if you look at how a lot of video game consoles, for example, let's just using this example, were developed, they were made for people that grew up with Nintendos and with Game Boys. And as they got older, like, I want to see what else I can do with it. And so they did this. And then somewhere, people came along and said, well, we need to make this easier. We don't want it just to be for a clunky computer you walk around, and let's make this put something in your pocket. So, Apple came up with an iPhone, small, fits in the palm of your hand. And then after the first iPhone came out, it was like, ooh, we could do apps, not just the apps that we see here, but we could open this up to everyone. And then it just, everything exploded. And the analogy I like to say is how many, hopefully you wouldn't yourself have volunteered to say yes to this, but if you go out to eat, the next time you do, see how many parents hand over their smartphone to even a child even younger than one. And the kid will navigate it, but does that kid really know what they're doing? What's the content they're clicking through? YouTube has changed the way they function now, where they have YouTube Shorts, and with YouTube Shorts, it's random things that pop in. And I don't know how YouTube and how it's not blocked, but there are things like porn that does pop up in YouTube. And it's kind of scary that you could be flipping through there and all of a sudden you see something going, whoa, I was watching, I was watching clips for basketball. And next thing I know, I've got, something in there. So how do we help navigate that? We also have to make sure that we go through and we talk about that everything we do follows us. And you notice in this image, I put smaller footprints leading up to a larger footprint, because the longer we're online, the larger our footprint gets. If you've never visited this link, and you should be able to click on this, I believe, the Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine. It's a website that will show you how many times people have visited certain websites or searched for things. And generally, everything on the internet is archived no matter what. When Snapchat was first came out, Snapchat was everybody thought Snapchat's going to be great because I can post pictures, I can say things, and it disappears. It doesn't disappear, because on my phone, if somebody sends me a Snapchat, I can just screenshot it, and now I've saved that snap that they sent, and then I can repost it. The perfect example of this is if you watch the news around the world, you see politicians, celebrities that are being called out for things they said 5, 10, 15, even 30 years ago that was recorded, and it's been, someone uploaded a video clip from, say, 1950, even if somebody's saying something, and they're going, oh, I never said those words. It's all there. It's all recorded. So how do we build the positive footprint as we go through? Because we don't want our kids focusing on the number of likes, the number of dislikes, followers, retweets, making things go viral. Because when we do that, our students and our own children get sucked into these things. They get sucked into anxiety, depression, developing low self-esteem. And the last one on there is, unfortunately, some of this does lead to suicide. I mean, students can get into places that all because of how they're viewing or what they're doing on a digital device. So what are some things that we can do to help with this? One thing to do is that we want to make sure that we have developed a safe place for them to play, to learn, and to stay. We want them to stay safe while they're using technology. We want them to learn safe, and we want them to play safe. And Google created this program years ago with I cannot remember the other company. It was like an internet safety company that came through. They created this program called Be Internet Awesome, and they have 5 simple things to go through. It talks about being internet smart, internet alert, internet strong, internet kind, and internet brave. It is a great tool as a parent, especially, that they could work through with their children. It has, depending on the age of the child, you have a fun learning game you can roll with it. And then you have just the concepts and the speaking. I mean, it's very simple. Like, you hand your child your own iPhone, for example, and say, hey, remember, make sure you're internet alert. Don't click on any pop-ups. If you get an email, don't click on a link if you don't know the person. Or the things like be internet smart. Remember, you're going to be sharing this document in class today, so make sure that you use some, be kind also. Be internet kind with your words you're going to type or you're going to say in that video that you're going to post. So the skills that are here do not just come naturally. They don't. I mean, it's you can see that just by how adults use things like social media. So if you want to check out the Internet Awesome program, it's actually beinternetawesomewithgoogle.com. If you just search for Be Internet Awesome, it will pull this information up. So how can we provide a healthier experience? Here's some tips that I will share with you today, and hopefully you will take some things from this. But the first one, the most important one, is talk. Talk with children. Talk with them, an open dialogue about anything and everything when you're using it. Nothing should be a closed door. If it's your own child, you should there shouldn't be you should know their passwords to get on to their email. They should know their password to get on their phone, their computer. And it should be hey, what you texting there? What are you typing? If they're hiding it from you, that means that there's, that should be a red flag. If your kids won't talk to you, that's a red flag. But if you start those conversations, and here's the biggest tip I can give, and even for students, this is as a teacher talking to students, they're going to mess up, and it's okay. If you come down on them really hard, even after the first time, you've lost trust. You are not going to, you're going to have to rebuild this open dialogue. So the best thing to do is to, realize that there's going to be mistakes. They're going to fail. They're going to possibly say something they shouldn't, post a picture, take things, click on links. You use it as an educational time to teach them, okay, why would this not be the right thing to say? Why would this picture not fit in this context? What do you think could happen if you clicked on this link? Prime example I can give you this is my son's Gmail account, his Epic Games account, his Twitter account. They got hacked this last spring. It was actually pretty scary, and I was very happy that he didn't have any money attached to any of these accounts or my credit card stuff attached to these accounts. But he came to me and was very scared because he could see that his account was being logged in. It was logged in. One of them was logged in Russia, and then all of a sudden it was in Belarus, and then all of a sudden it showed up in Germany, and then it shows up in China. And so he's like, I don't know what's going on. So instead of getting upset with him, we had an opportunity to talk about what did you possibly do. And it was a good open dialogue of, this is why we don't use some freeware. This is why we don't go and find all these custom things to do to your computer, because they could have malware in them and they could have viruses and so on. So on the inside, after I've talked to him, I was very upset, and I had to go, but I didn't do it in front of him. So that's just important that you have an open dialogue. Some questions that you could have about posting and sharing, I'll just put them up on the screen so you can kind of go through them. Is if you do allow your children, or you do allow in your classroom or so on, to use the social media, you should have some very good questions here that you should work with them. Kind of, do a little flow chart of if you're going to post this on Twitter, for example, who would want to, is it okay if I saw it? Is it okay if your grandma saw it? What about, is it, are you sure that picture is going to be good? Because it kind of looks like you're being disrespectful towards this, or so on. Those are some good things to go through. Or misinterpretations. There's I can't remember the actress's name, but recently there was an actress that posted pictures, I think on Instagram or Twitter, of her birthday party. And there happened to be some people that were in the pictures that were wearing, they had on they were wearing red hats. Well, it became a huge firestorm, because then everybody just associated her with the whole, oh, this person must be supporting this political, and it had nothing to do with that, but it was misinterpreted. So those are kind of lessons that we need to teach students and our own children as we go through. And before you post, think before you post. And Be Internet Awesome actually has some tools in there to work through some examples of thinking before you go through with when you're talking about Be Internet Safe and Be Internet Kind and so on. Next one is to create healthy habits. It's kind of like we talk about healthy eating habits, healthy exercise, and so on. We got to do the same thing with tech. So think about tech time as like food, and not all food is created equal. And so we want our kids to grow and develop in a healthy, steady way. We don't want them to eat, for example, sugar all the time. You don't want them to, but at the same time, they can't constantly eat. You wouldn't want them to only eat meat. They need some vegetables. They need some vitamins. They need, other things. Same thing with tech. If they're only on there playing video games, or they're only on social media, and they haven't done things like productivity, or they haven't understood that I should only be on here for, say, 30 minutes at a time instead of 5 hours at a time. Talk about the habits that you can develop there. Set boundaries. And the biggest one on boundaries is on your values. And your values are going to be different than others. Your children will not like that. My personal children do not like that because I have screen time limits set up on their accounts. And I constantly get asked, so and so's parents don't do this. And I'm like, but they may let them do that. I don't. I have, because I want to set up the healthy habits. I want them to understand you should only watch YouTube for an hour, and then you need to go do something else, do some homework, read, clean the house, do something, and then maybe we'll talk about some more time. So set boundaries based on those, and then actually talk to your kids about why you have those boundaries set up as they go through. The next one, this is a really kind of a funny one, but it's a very important one, is help the kids see the dollar signs that can pop up. They don't realize that they are being sold. Their data is being sold. Their privacy, their viewing habits are all based on algorithms that Facebook and Google and Twitter and Apple, they've all got these things they're doing that to make money off of us without us even realizing it's happened. So it's important to kind of talk to students about this, because a lot of times, children especially, they get an idea of fairness and what's right and wrong. And then if you actually have a conversation about, every time you do this, this person's making X amount of money, they may turn around and go, whoa, maybe I don't want to keep clicking on these videos or so on. So just it's a good conversation to have there too. And this one is also a great thing, is to accompany kids in this tech world. Just as a parent would not leave their child unaccompanied, like in a mall or the airport, surrounded by a bunch of strangers, you've got to do the same thing in the online world. Sit with them, see what they're watching on YouTube as an example, or what there is in their watch history on Netflix or whatever else platform they may be doing. Maybe actually join the websites. You may not play a game, may have never played Fortnite, but it's good to have a conversation to see why your child likes it so much, or like Roblox, for example. Roblox is a lot of kids play Roblox, and parents do not realize that it's actually a pretty dangerous place to hang out a lot of times. There's some very sketchy things that go on in that make that we need to, but if you've never experienced it, you don't really know those things are happening in there. Make sure you're modeling. So if you're telling your kids to only spend X amount of time on their device, you need to do the same thing. It's the hardest thing to do. I will tell you personally, as a parent, it's hard. But if you're going to tell your kids, for example, don't text and drive, you don't do it. Don't drink and drive, you don't do it. If you're going to tell them to brush their teeth before they go to bed, you better brush your teeth before you go to bed, or put your dishes in the dishwasher, or put your laundry in the hamper instead of on the floor. Same thing with tech. If you tell your kids not to watch YouTube for 5 hours at a time, you don't do it. Model for them those behaviors, because they're going to follow you. Keep up with the latest trends. What are the new accounts? Listen to the conversations, because that's a lot of ways how I learn the new apps that are out there and how things are working. And I remember when Snapchat came out for the first time, I was like, oh. Or things like Instagram, when Instagram came out, and even like WhatsApp. I was like, oh yeah, WhatsApp. And a lot of people around the world use it. But I just mentioned WhatsApp, Instagram, both of those are owned by one company, Facebook. Facebook owns them. And so kids may say, I don't use Facebook. Like, actually, you do. You've given your data to Facebook because you're using Instagram or you're using WhatsApp. And they may not know these things. You may not know these things. So it's always a good idea to keep up with the latest trends to know what's happening out there. If they are on social media, follow them. I don't have social media myself because my children don't have it. I don't see a use for it. I had it years ago. I got rid of Facebook in 2008, and I've never been happier. I haven't missed it one bit. It is it can be, but if you are going to allow them because their children really want to be in there, you should be on there also for modeling, but also so you can follow what your kids are doing on there. And then the biggest one is, no matter what, kids should be on their own accounts. They should never be using your account. So what I mean by that is, for example, Microsoft, Apple, and Google, all of them have family accounts set up. You can create a child account for a Microsoft. So if you're on a PC computer, they should have their own login. It's a good habits at the same time, because you can put limits and they don't have full access to the device. So if you're allowing your kids to get on your personal PC or your personal MacBook under your account, and they decide to click on malware, download things, and so on, you've now compromised more than just their account. It's also your account, possibly your bank accounts, and so on. These are, I would search for these. If you're not using this, read up on them. They're absolutely free to use. And if you already have accounts that are outside of their family right now, they have their own account, but they're not within, say, the Apple family or the Google family, you can bring those accounts into your family, and it'll save you some headache and some time, and can help develop those habits. Okay. And then the last one, the last piece of advice, the biggest one, is never assume. The worst thing you can do is assume that your child knows what they're doing. You wouldn't assume they would know how to turn the stove on and cook you a meal. So don't assume they know what to do with the smartphone or with the tablet or with anything. Just never assume that they know what's going on in there. Okay. And hopefully you got a lot out of that. That was quite a bit of tips in 25 minutes, I think, there. But there's a lot more that you can get into it, but those are some good places to start as you go through and try to just remind yourself too about having safety and realizing that you got to think about it kind of like navigating traffic. And if you drive or you don't drive, if you just ride in other cars, think about how those things are having to work together. It's the same thing. You've got to do that with your children and help them safely navigate from point A to point B. So thank you for your time. As we go, let me stop this, Tim. There we go.
David, thank you so much. A lot of useful information, very practical tips, and I think just, you touched on the big ones, really talking to your children, being aware of the technology and what they're using, and having those important conversations with them. So hopefully we can have you back another time later and dive deeper into some of these topics, and we really appreciate
I'd love to. Yes,
your time.
I'd love to, because there's especially on the personal account stuff, there's a lot of things that we could go a lot deeper on. So yes, I would be more than happy to come back for more conversations. Yes.
Great. And to the parents and the monitors for coming out today, thank you very much. We really appreciate your support and your participation in these events. So with that, I'll wish everyone a great afternoon, and thanks again, David.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.